Okay.
Okay. So this is episode 3 of Talking with the Presses, presented by Poetry London Online. I'm Kevin Heslop, joining Kfb, poet and founder of Knife Fork Book, Canada's only all-poetry bookshop, as well as a chapbook and poetry collection press. And to begin, I wonder, Kfb, whether you'd say a few words about Knife Fork Book's beginnings in 2016, what motivated you to open the bookshop, and then subsequently how you came to publish the chapbooks.
I was juggling 4 contracts as a librarian. It was my second career. And I wasn't actually doing the work that I set out to do. And it was not a whole lot of fun to juggle contracts all at once. And there was no guarantees of anything down the pike. So I created this community library. I live in a co-op. It's one of the largest co-ops in North America here in Toronto. There's about 900 units. And there was a space downstairs, a community room that was being underutilized, let's say. And I had a vision to create a library there, a community library. And that's what happened. And so that was kind of like the nemesis for Knife Fork Book. Then I had a book cart in Kensington Market that would be selling used books to support programming at the library. And that's when I met this gentleman, Rick, who ran a cafe a few doors down. And he would say, "Kfb, what do you have for me?" And I'd pull out a few things. And he goes, "Can we talk sometime?" I said, "Sure." Anyway, his place, he was struggling. There was about 6 coffee shops that had just opened up in the same block, basically. And I said, "Darling, we need to create a destination. We don't need another coffee shop. We need a destination. I can help you do that." So I knew that Toronto didn't need another used bookshop. What Toronto needed was a poetry shop. And that was my little fantasy for many, many, many years. I mean, it's the section I go to in the library myself. So I thought, oh my God, a poetry shop. Here's the chance. Let's do it. So baby, I had 40 years of my collection of poetry. There was a huge donation of chapbooks. We opened Knife Fork Book. Boom. That's how it happened. So, and publishers came on board, and it became Knife Fork Book. How sweet is that?
Yeah. And so you began in Kensington Market, and then you moved, was it maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago to Artscape Young Place, where it is now?
No, we actually went from Rick's to, we were in the market for almost 4 years, and then we moved into Artscape in September. And so that was largely because we wanted to move into an accessible space. We wanted to have our own space to do programming 724. We wanted to be able to do installation work, stuff like that. So it seemed like a good move and more kin to our skin. Mm-hmm. That's how that happened. And we started, the whole thing with publishing and chapbooks is that, darling, I was in a little perch to see what was flying off the shelves. And surprisingly, or I shouldn't say surprisingly, chapbooks, people fell in love with chapbooks, but that's largely because they were displayed. We put them front and center, And so what was normally kind of like you either knew about them online or whatever, where you could actually come and physically handle and peruse and touch and browse. And I thought, oh, this is a no-brainer. KFB needs to be doing chapbooks.
So in episode 1, when I was speaking with Amy Mitchell and Aaron Schneider, they mentioned that Canadian poetry has, I don't know if they didn't use the word renaissance, but it's certainly experiencing a sort of surge of energy and enthusiasm right now. And I think it has principally to do with the variety of chapbooks being published at the moment. I wonder if you'd sort of free associate a bit on the chapbook form. It's like, it's a substantial meal when you sit down to one. Not meaning to pun on the Knife Fork Book Association, but I mean, what about? And you've published some yourself, written and published some yourself. I wonder what it is about this form that seems to be so appealing at the moment.
because it's quick and easy and now.
Yeah.
I mean, how the Canadian stuff's worked so far is that you might, fortunately submit, have your work considered, and then it'd be another year, maybe 2 years before you're even going to see it in book form. So at any point you can put out a chapbook, and in point of fact, I don't want to test out new material, or poets want to have some stuff in the, between their collections. A chapbook's exquisite, and it can be anywhere from a few pages to even, well, some are a single page even, to up to 48 pages. So, and they're bite-sized and they're fun, and some can have a very specific focus, which could only happen as a chapbook. Some books, some collections, they're just a bit too long.
Mm-hmm.
I can see where everything's moving towards a shorter form, and why not?
Mm-hmm.
That's the attention span these days, and I'm a big fan of something pretty and complete in that sense. Yeah.
So so you start up with the idea to, in this co-op, open a sort of library, and that morphs into books available in Kensington Market, which then becomes the first iteration of Night Fort Book, which has since moved to Artscape Young Place, and to the point where the Toronto lit scene has become, in Jim Johnstone's words, unimaginable without the presence of KFB. It's really become sort of one of the more remarkable, certainly in Canada, but also in North America, sort of reading spots. I wonder if I could put you on the spot for a moment and ask you to recall moments when we had been in that sort of, to be nostalgic for a moment, that sort of Edenic time past when we could get together and go to readings with one another. Are there moments or times at KFB that stand out in particular when you sort of cast your eyes back?
Oh my God, there's so many. I mean, I love each period of our time. I mean, the time in Rick's Cafe was chaotic and fun and fresh and crazy, and kind of felt like a free-for-all, and how many people can we fit into the space, and open the windows and have people pour out onto the sidewalk. It had that wonderful kinetic energy of being new and fresh and different, and who doesn't like something new, darling? I mean, Toronto's addicted to the fucking new.
Mm.
And then moving into the dark side, which is right across the street, beautiful, beautiful open dance studio space, lent itself to such a different, space, sound, visually, everything with regards to the readings. It gave us a lot more say in how readings were attended. People had to take off their shoes when they entered. There was a certain commonality of that, but also we held a really significant, beautiful space there. And I mean, the only detriment there was that it wasn't accessible, which sucked. But other than that, we did some really, really pretty things there. I'm thinking of like the Almaritz Love Fest. We called it Big Al's Love Fest. It was when the Sparrow came out, his collection of big volume of collection. His new book, by the way, is stunning, like jaw-dropping stunning, as far as I know. Oh my God, as far as you know, it's called. So good. Okay, so and the Lynn Crosby 10th anniversary thing was also, I mean, we liked to specifically target and champion and celebrate poets, right? That's really what KFB is about. A lot of women poets like Ruth Rose Pearson, a few others, they fell through the cracks in Canadian poetry, with the emphasis being on mostly male writers and publishers and whatnot. Everything comes in cycles like that, right? The marginalized voices. There were marginalized women voices, marginalized queer voices, marginalized Black, Indigenous, trans. I mean, it's all, that much hasn't changed in my 61 years of life. There will always be marginalized voices. I'm praying that swings far more into an open meadow where we can all rejoice together.
Mm.
That's, of course, the aim. I'm hoping that that's the case. I'm interested in inclusion. I'm not interested in just exchanging powers. I'm interested in liberation and inclusion. And that is my hope of what's going on today, the explosion um, of new voices, which is very exciting.
Mm.
So I didn't really answer your question about what stood out. I guess for me, what stood out was the opportunity for poets to come and hear poets. You know, most of our audience is still poets. And I used to travel. I would travel many places, New York, Chicago, other places, to actually go and hear poets, Detroit. And I couldn't afford that. So I thought, fuck, let's bring it, let's bring it here. Let's bring it to me, right? So that was probably, I'm completely selfish. I just, I'd like to do this. Okay, let's do it. It's altruistic because I'm altruist, but also it's a desire to gather. It's a desire to gather.
Mm.
So I'm running on. Go ahead. More.
Not at all. I identify with the desire to gather, especially now. But in London, that's been sort of my excuse to get artists together, is just say, okay, well, how about we do this thing where we just call it organizing, and then you'll.
Our kinship, darling. That's where you and I connect strongly. I love what you're doing in London, and it was, oh my God, what a joy to come and partake of your community and engage. I want more of that myself, and that's the future of KFB as well. I realized that we actually have as much of a national connection profile as what's happening here in Toronto. Billy Ray Belcourt recently said in The Fold that Toronto's not the center of the fucking literary universe, and that's completely accurate and true.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a place where you can more readily, easily hear and see a larger number of poets, let's say. But if one of the good things that can happen out of this whole COVID experience that we're engaged in is it's widening the menu.
Mm.
It's very exciting that we can hear now. There's poets I would never have heard other than traveling to hear them, and now hearing them online. It's a little tedious. The Zoom thing's a little tedious, but other than that, there's also extraordinary opportunity.
Mm. So I see that Talon Books, Anstruther Press, and Gordon Hill Press all represent corporate sponsors of KFB, and I wonder if you'd talk a little bit about your association with each, and with the people behind those presses, Talon, Anstruther, and Gordon Hill.
The whole idea behind the corporate sponsorship was to get product into the shop, where there's still let's say the 60-40 split on books, which if we were, let's say, Indigo or someplace else, that might work because of volume. But because we're a poetry-only shop, I wanted to offer up, if we get so much, product per year of new goods, then we would also, front that, support it. We do it anyway. We do it anyway. That's how this happened. I used to work for a small Canadian press. I saw what the holes were. I saw the holes in distribution, in promotion, in the fact that the best that any book got would be a launch and then good luck.
Mm-hmm.
And what I wanted to do was treat poetry in the same way that a bestseller is treated. Display it, front it, promote it, back it up, just talk about it with the poets, just, get in touch with the publishers. That's why I didn't work with distributors right off the bat. I wanted to work specifically with publishers, which is what led to the corporate sponsorships. So it's worked out, Ann Strother, you get to do your launches at KFB for free. Ann Strother has, as our biggest events at KFB, our Ann Strother launches. Gordon Hill was fresh and coming out, and we shared a poet. Roxana did a chapbook with us, and then the full length with Gordon Hill, and I love what Gordon Hill's doing. And Talon Books, I spoke with Kevin, who's the publisher at Talon, wonderful, wonderful man. And he just said, Kirby, we didn't have the profile that we had in Toronto until KFB came along. They were pretty much overlooked. And so we're placing them front and center. And that's what I do. That's what I do. I wish more and more publishers understood that we're not we're not Type, we're not Queen Books. They all do extraordinary work. Another bookshop, a different book list. They're amazing bookshops. I would frequent them regularly in the neighborhood. KFB is very, very specific. We're all poetry only. For many, many places, that might be one or two shelves in a bookshop. So and what we do is front poetry in a way that, at least in my mind, I can't see it any other way than upfront. So that's the thing about KFB.
And speaking of upfront and now in bestsellers, the Orange collection just came out a couple of months ago, and I wonder if you'd talk a bit about this extraordinary sequence of chapbooks involved in the quartet from Michael Cavuto, Hamish Ballantyne, Andy Verboom, and John Nyman. I think Cavuto's Country Poems is the first full-length collection KFB has printed. Is that right?
It is our first full-length. It's such a beautiful book.
Incredible.
I love that book so much. And Cavuto just read the other night. It was really lovely to hear them. What I'd like to do with each season is have a specific series look for what we're putting out in that specific frame. So we came up with the Orange collection, which, because she likes orange, and made it pretty. And it's kind of interesting because the Cavuto and Hamish Ballantyne's work are kind of companions, not dissimilar to the Verboom and Nyman work. I feel kind of like companions as well. We had All Women in the fall. We had Wild Wind's work and Brandy Ryan and Carrie Mander's work in the fall, and in the spring we had the boys come out. So spring. Yeah. It just happened that way. It's not a. Like right now I'm looking at what's coming out in the fall. Neil Serkan has a new chapter coming out with us called Desire Path. Catherine Mockler and Gary Barwin have a collaborative piece that we're doing. I haven't decided what else is going to be in the fall as opposed to the spring, but juggling that right now. But you wanted to hear something else about those chapbooks, or am I answering the question?
No, I wanted to sort of plug them, frankly, to be transparent.
Oh my God, thank you so much.
I've been reading them lately, and they're that's an astonishing sequence. And as you say, like they're quite different from one another, although I agree with Cavuto's and Ballantyne's are more similar, and Verboom's and Nyman's likewise.
God, Cavuto,
it's definitely a set to pick up.
Double. I will tell you that with Verboom's Double, oh my God, so good. And then the Devil, which John is the devil,
I think he's aware of that too, in fact.
I think devilishly handsome. He's the devil. The funny thing about the Verboom, so when I first got that, it was the original title was Teledictonics, and I said, darling, I gotta sell this book.
I'll be able to pronounce the title if I'm going to sell it.
It ain't being called dildo. There's 2 poems about double-headed dildos, which you call double-ended, which I kind of went, you didn't ask me.
Right. You
Double.
also did a chapbook with Karen Schneider that was double-headed sonnets, like doubled sort of sonnets in the sort of mirror form, one sonnet after the next.
Yeah. And that book, The Tower, he did with Amster too. He's a chapbook. I'm thinking he should put the 6 chapbooks should be one book called Chaps. What the fuck? That's a pitch, Andy.
I think Andy, if you're watching,
get on it. Anyway, thanks for the plug. I'm thrilled with these. They're moving well. I mean, we weren't able to have nearly the live interaction that all of us were seeking when these were announced to come out.
Yeah.
But we're making up for it.
So for the small press, micro press, journal publishers out there who have been deprived of the opportunity to have in-person launches, I thought we might talk for just a moment about the Orange Collection and how it was launched as sort of a one-night only sequence of pre-recorded videos with the 4 poets. And I wonder how you're thinking about the question of launches in this coming fall season, and whether there are ways that you've adapted to our current quarantinic circumstance that might be interesting to others who are in similar straits.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you've had a Zoom experience, yes, with launches before.
Yep.
The thing even as a participant, I'm in an empty room. All of a sudden, I'm on. Click. I'm on. Have a wonderful time. Do my thing. La la la. Click. I'm off. I'm in an empty room. Yeah. It's not a very pleasant experience, to be honest. I mean, I love my home and I enjoy my own company, but it's not what the exchange, the exchange is so important. And I opt more for pre-recorded than live, because pre-recorded I have a lot more say over it and can do it over a few times with my bedtime poems. I'm usually down to 3 or 4 takes, but the pre-recording gives it the thoughtfulness and the focus that I think is important. There's not as much glitch or banter that is extraneous. At KFB, the focus has always been on serving poetry, meaning here's where we start, here's the poetry, thank you and good night. It's not a la la la. All the other stuff happens in the fact that we're physically there or exchanging. So I know what we're doing at KFB is we're looking at this really, really closely. We're planning on being online for the rest of this year, at least. Yep. And we're looking at creating very unique pre-recorded experiences that reflect who we are and what we're about in terms of serving poetry. So that's the best I can say about it. I think people, to those who are planning ahead, I don't see this changing. I think that people are a bit burnt out from the Zoom experience. It's exhausting. It's exhausting for the artists as well. And I don't know what else to say about that. I would find it, for me, the pre-recorded experience is far more creative. There's far more creative options than the live Zoom head option, which is tiresome. And there's a flood of that, and everybody's doing that, and it's going to be tired real quick. So plan something else this fall. Those of you who are planning launches, make it yours. Make it yours. I wouldn't rely on a Zoom live thing. And also, there's been some, as you well know, or probably have heard, there's been also some difficulties with the security on Zoom as well. Yeah. So that has not, you don't want that to happen.
And so before we go, I wanted to ask you finally, in addition to the availability of the Orange collection and the variety of wonderful chapbooks that KFB has produced, you're also curating a selection of contemporary poetry called KFB Selects, and I wonder if you'd give us a sense of what that is.
I'm going to totally give you a sense of that, because no one is more overjoyed, thrilled than I am at the response. We did have a subscription series early on for a year, and it didn't really take off. There was a handful of subscribers, I'd say, but it was a good start, and it was a good way of promoting books. But then it became obvious to me that this would be the route to go. It would stay true to our mission in terms of championing poets and poetry. I usually select a little bit off the beaten path. And I know that there's stuff coming up that is really off the beaten path. A lot of chapbooks are coming up on the Kfb Selects, a number of US titles as well as Canadian titles, international titles as well. And I keep just making it interesting. But the other thing about it is, even if you don't like what KFB selects, you can choose an alternate. So it's a way of continuing to support KFB. It's a way of being introduced to a lot of poetry you might not have considered otherwise. And yeah, I mean, I guess who knew that the Kaikilo and the Roxana Bennett would become, award-winning mainstream, boom, boom, boom. Didn't really know that was going to happen.
Before the prizes, yeah.
How exciting, how exciting. And once that happened, I kind of went, because we were in the middle of trying to make something before Kai was even nominated. I said, darling, I love your book. Let's do something kind of special here. And we had the idea of doing something in one of the performance spaces at Artscape. The last thing we had done at Artscape, which was virtually the night before we closed for the virus, was Alice Notley, which, well, if you're going to go with Alice Notley, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Really, it was breathtaking. And it was one of the few, it's online, it's on our Patreon site, it's free. If you can contribute, fine, if not. But that reading, go. See and hear Alice Notley, it's transformative. Hi, darling, what do you have coming up? What do you have coming up? Ask?
I personally, I'm working on the manuscript with Shane, with Gordon Hope Press, Shane and Luke. That'll be next fall. So just improving that, and then there are a couple of other tentative projects on the go, but we'll see. Yeah.
That's super exciting. I have a new chapbook coming out soon.
That's right. Call me, or what do you want to be called? With it,
what do you want to be called?
Yeah.
Oh, it's coming out this summer. We're not holding back.
Excellent.
Summer needs some Kirby, and I'm bringing it.
You're here.
So that'll be sweet. And some other projects. I'm working on a collection of essays, Poetry is Queer, and well into my next full length. So yeah, it's really sweet. I'm glad to hear you've got some work on the go. That makes me happy.
Well, I mean, especially being in the company of somebody like you, who's so active in the poetry community and getting people in conversation with one another and hosting events and so forth. I feel obligated to be producing work. It's you're the kind of person who gets me out of bed in the morning. Really, like, it forces me to be participating in this community that we're privileged to be part of.
I don't think you realize how reciprocal that is. I was just speaking to Andy actually earlier this evening, and it's
yeah,
it's important. It's important. Important meaning my life is sweeter with you than without. Yeah, that's what I mean, and I mean that. I can't make this shit up. So it's nice to be able to share some sweetness, some support, which is so important people, nothing distresses me more than people falling through the cracks unnecessarily, on no reason of their own. So we have to take care of it. Oh my God, can I say one more thing, one more story? So Douglas Copeland, who I absolutely adore, love everything about him, love his art, love his work, love him. And I went to go see him at the Massey Hall lectures, and I was sitting, it's in Convocation Hall. I was sitting in a spot, for some reason, Kevin, I couldn't hear a fucking thing. My ear, for whatever reason, the sound wasn't reaching me. And it's a good thing I was familiar with the material, I had already read the work. But in the last 10 minutes, like my ear popped, and all of a sudden I'm hearing the final 10 minutes of this work, which is brilliant, totally brilliant. So afterwards I walk up to him, I said, darling, I had this experience, and then finally I could hear, and he goes, Douglas, and he goes, Kirby, we need to look after each other.
Yeah.
Look after each other. That's what we need to do.
Yeah.
So.
Here. And on that note, reminding our audience that we have the Orange Collection and Kfb Selects to choose from, the wonderful, inimitable, lion-hearted Kirby. This has been episode 3 of Talking with the Presses, presented by Poetry London Online. I'm Kevin Haslop. Thank you, Kirby, owner and editor of Night Fork Book, for your time this evening. It's been a joy,
Pleasure,
sustaining delight.